This is the story of the death of my wife, Elaine, who died in March 2005 as a result of an attempted routine operation that went wrong.
Elaine actually had very good health, but she had suffered from some sinus problems, and as a result a consultant had recommended that she should have routine sinus surgery. She died some 13 days after the original attempted operation.
And at 8:35 in the morning, Elaine was anaesthetised.
Off we go now. Off to sleep.
The first mask wouldn't fit. They tried a second mask.
Why am I having problems here? I don't know, I'll open this. Hold down a bit. Let me push the head back a bit more.
They then tried some extra drugs to try and reduce some suspected tension in the muscles in the jaw. So it was obvious almost straight away that things were going wrong. We know that 2 minutes in, Elaine's oxygenation was 75% and falling, and she was by this time already visibly blue. Within 4 minutes we know that her oxygenation had fallen to 40% or lower. There's some confusion about the precise time, but we know that 6 to 8 minutes in, a number of things were happening. The anaesthetist had already started to attempt to intubate Elaine. The oxygenation was still at 40% or lower, the heart rate was falling. The ENT surgeon waiting to perform the op came into the theatre. An anaesthetist from an adjoining theatre became aware of a commotion, and he walked in to see what could be done. And at least 3 nurses answered a call for help. And what happened is that the 3 consultants continued with the attempts to intubate, and they used a variety of different techniques and a variety of different pieces of equipment. With hindsight, this is a situation of can't intubate, can't ventilate. This is a recognised emergency in anaesthesia for which guidelines exist. What we know actually happened is this point in, 10 minutes for a further 15 minutes, the 3 consultants would appear to have continued with their attempts to intubate, and finally by the time we're 35 minutes in, they seem to make the decision that the best thing is just to let her wake up naturally.
Let's wheel her back, quick as we can.
The lead anaesthetist, if I can call him that, in his own words, lost control. There was a question mark in the inquest about who people felt was in charge at different points. There was certainly a breakdown in the decision-making processes, and it would appear that the communication processes dried up amongst the consultants. The story with the nurses is very different. The nurses were generally aware of what was happening and what needed to happen. One of them asked her colleague to go and fetch the tracheostomy set. She collected the tracheostomy set, she came back in and she announced to the consultants that the tracheostomy set was available, and there was no response. One of the other nurses who walked in immediately saw Elaine's colour, immediately saw the vital signs, and walked out again to phone intensive care. She came back in and she announced to the 3 consultants that a bed was available in intensive care. And in her own words, they looked at her as if to say, "What's wrong? You're overreacting." She actually walked out and cancelled that bed. At the inquest, 2 of the 4 nurses stated that they knew exactly what needed to happen, but again, to quote from the inquest, didn't know how to broach the subject. We have a breakdown of leadership, of situational awareness, of prioritisation, of decision-making, of communication, and of assertiveness. And these same factors, these same human factors, ironically, are present in 75% of aviation accidents. And really, since then, I've been trying to understand why in aviation we train and to understand about human factors, and it's an integral part of how we design equipment and how we manage procedures and how we work day to day. It's part of our everyday language. but I'm trying to understand why that's not part of clinical practice.
Human factors tells us that actually we're all wrong no matter how good we are, and we need people around us to help us. It's creating that open environment within your colleagues, being open to suggestions. If they put their hand up and say, "Excuse me, I'm not sure about this," it's not turning around and saying, "Actually, I'm the boss here." It's turning around and saying, "Tell me what your concern is." It's listening.